They didn't whisper when she walked in. They didn't need to. By now, Miss Harper could read a room the way a medic reads a pulse, one look, and you know who's pretending nothing's wrong. The first bell hadn't even rung when she pushed open the staffroom door, balancing her tote, a tray of paper cups, and a stack of graded essays. The coffee machine hissed like a tired animal. Ms. Doyle glanced up, then back down at her phone. Mr. Patel gave the polite nod people use when they don't want to start a conversation. An assistant principal smiled too widely, as if being nice could erase the headlines no one had printed but everyone had rehearsed. Her son is trouble. Her son is the problem. What kind of teacher can't even control her own kid? Morning, Miss Harper said, gentle and steady, because that was her way. She set the essays down and slid the paper cups toward the edge of the table. Brought extra. Thanks, Ms. Doyle said without looking up. Mr. Patel cleared his throat. Big day, huh? Harper knew what he meant. Not grades. Not meetings. The email last night, subject line, incident report, Jake Harper. 15 years old, a tangle of elbows and sharp retorts, a son she loved more fiercely than her heartbeat, and the reason colleagues had started using the word optics when they thought she couldn't hear. I'll take care of it, she said. It came out softer than she wanted. The intercom clicked. Staff, please check your email for morning updates. A pause. And Miss Harper, see me before first period. Principal Wexler's voice was warm, practiced, a blanket laid over a bruise. Harper gathered the essays. Have a good day, she said to no one in particular, and stepped back into the hallway. Students were already flooding in, backpacks thudding, sneakers squeaking, laughter too loud for 7:45. A few of them waved. Morning, Miss H. She smiled, the real kind, the one that reached her eyes. Teaching still felt like oxygen most days. In her classroom she could measure effort, witness change, count small miracles in complete sentences. But the corridor between the staff room and the principal's office felt longer than usual. Wexler's door was ajar. He stood when she entered. Nora, he said, using her first name like a soft landing. Sit. She didn't. What happened? Wexler folded his hands. There was an altercation after last period. Jake and another student. Security separated them. No one was seriously hurt. Harper let out the breath she didn't know she'd been holding. Who? He hesitated. Ethan Mullen. Of course. Ethan, varsity jacket, careless grin, a home life with edges sanded smooth. The kind of boy who never met a boundary he couldn't charm. What did they say? Two different stories. Wexler sighed. Ethan claims Jake shoved him, unprovoked. Jake claims Ethan cornered him near the stairwell and called him. He stopped. It doesn't matter what he said. It matters to me, Harper replied. Calm. Precise. Words are where fights begin. Wexler shifted in his chair. We'll review the camera at the west stairs. Meanwhile, I'd like Jake to stay home today. You're suspending him. I'm asking for space. He softened his voice. Nora, you're a remarkable teacher. Everyone knows that. But this keeps happening. Parents are talking. Staff are, he searched for a word and chose the safest one. Concerned. There it was, optics, dressed up and ironed flat. I'll speak to him, she said. We're doing the work. Therapy, structure, accountability. I know. Wexler meant it. He did. This isn't about your effort. It's about the temperature in the building. We need it to cool down. Harper swallowed. I'll take my first period, then I'll go. Thank you, he said, relief audible. Meetings are easier when the person you're hurting offers to hold the door. Back in her classroom, the world snapped into focus. Desks in 3 neat rows. Vocabulary on the board. Sunlight cutting the dust into bright confetti. She placed the graded essays on the front table and wrote, in block letters, "Voice is a choice." Underneath, "Write like someone is listening. Miss H." A girl hovered in the doorway. Talia, quiet, brilliant, always half ready to apologize for taking up space. "Can I ask about my thesis statement?" Harper smiled. "Come in." For 10 minutes, there were no emails, no security footage, no invisible jury. Just a teenager trying to say something true and a teacher making room for the words. When the bell rang, a dozen faces turned toward her with the kind of attention you can't buy and can't fake. "Today," she said, "we're going to practice writing from the gut. No polishing yet. No second guessing. You'll learn to fix it later. First, we learn to feel it." A few kids groaned, theatrically. She grinned. "Yes, feelings. Tragic. Open your notebooks." By the second prompt, the door cracked open. The assistant principal peered in. "Miss Harper, quick word." 20 pairs of eyes tracked the interruption. Harper nodded to the class. "Keep going, 10 more minutes. No censoring. If your pencil squeaks, it means you're alive." She stepped into the hall. Security pulled the west stairwell footage, the AP said, voice hushed. "It's inconclusive." "Meaning?" "Meaning you can't see the push. Just the aftermath." "Jake looks," she faltered. "He looks angry." "He is angry," Harper said softly. "Anger is what pain wears to feel bigger." The AP blinked, unsure whether she'd just been corrected or comforted. "Right. Well. We'll be in touch." When Harper returned, the room went still the way rooms do when they're pretending they weren't alive without you. She moved between desks, reading over slanted lines and crossed-out confessions. A boy with bitten nails wrote 3 words, "I feel seen." She tapped the margin. "That's a thesis," she whispered. Between second and third period, the text came, 3 words from an unknown number that still lived in her phone as Jake's counselor, "Old, he needs you." Harper closed her eyes. For a heartbeat, the corridors, the staff room, the committee in her head, all of it fell away. She picked up her tote. "Class," she said, voice steady, pop quiz, on being human. Rule 1, we don't judge a person by their worst day. Rule 2, we don't judge a parent by their child's hardest season. Rule 3, we write like someone is listening, because someone is. They laughed, a little. The bell rang. Papers shuffled. Life moved. At 10:07, she signed out at the front office and stepped into the pale winter sun. The air tasted like cold metal and new starts. She dialed a number she knew by muscle memory. "Jake," she said when he picked up. "I'm coming home." He didn't answer. She could hear his breath, the kind that means a boy is building a wall and praying it looks like a fortress, not a cry for help. "Don't hang up," she added. "Not today." She took the long way to the parking lot, past the staff room window. Ms. Doyle pretended not to see her. Mr. Patel adjusted his tie. Somewhere inside, someone said optics again. They could have the word. Miss Harper had a son to reach. And a story to rewrite, one sentence at a time. Miss Harper's apartment was small but neat, the kind of place where every surface served 2 purposes, dining table as grading desk, couch as conference room, kitchen counter as after-school tutoring station. Jake sat hunched over a bowl of cereal at 10:45 a.m., spoon idle in his hand, eyes locked on something far past the living room wall. "You're supposed to eat that," Harper said, hanging her coat by the door. He didn't look up. "I'm not hungry." "You weren't hungry yesterday, either." She set her tote down. "Jake, talk to me." He stirred the cereal once, watching the milk swirl. "Nothing to talk about." Then listen, she said, sitting opposite him. You can't keep walking into school like a storm. People get hurt. People talk, he muttered. Yes, they do. And right now, they're talking about you. He pushed the bowl away, the metal spoon clinking against ceramic. You don't get it. Her voice softened. Then help me. For a long moment, only the hum of the refrigerator filled the room. Then, so quietly she almost missed it, he said, it's not about Ethan. Or the other fights. What is it about? His eyes flicked to hers, then away. Do you remember that night? The alley behind the old store. Harper's stomach dropped. She hadn't heard him mention it in years. Jake. I saw him, Mom. His voice cracked, anger and fear threading through each word. I saw what he did to that guy. He didn't even look sorry. Just, finished and walked away. Harper reached for his hand, but he pulled back. She remembered the call from the police that night, the way Jake had been found sitting on the curb, trembling. They'd told her he'd witnessed a dispute. She'd known better than to press for details when his nightmares were already doing the talking. That was 3 years ago, she said gently. Yeah, well, it's still in here. He tapped his temple. Every time someone corners me, every time I hear footsteps behind me, I'm back there. And I'm not gonna be that kid on the curb again. Harper swallowed hard. So you hit first. I make sure no one gets the chance. She wanted to tell him that wasn't how you keep safe, that you can't punch away the past. But the truth was, she understood more than she wanted to admit. Before she could speak, the phone rang. Caller ID, Wexler. She sighed and answered. This is Nora. Miss Harper, the principal began, I've spoken to Ethan's parents. They're demanding a formal review. I need you here tomorrow morning. She glanced at Jake, who was watching her with guarded eyes. We'll be there. After she hung up, Harper sat back down. Jake, this isn't just about what you saw. It's about what you do with it now. He looked away again. You think talking about it's gonna fix me? No, she said. But maybe it'll keep you from losing yourself in it. For the rest of the afternoon, the apartment was quiet, Jake in his room with music low enough to pretend it wasn't on, Harper grading papers at the kitchen table. But the image he'd given her, the alley, the man, the look in his eyes, settled in her chest like a stone. That night, as she prepared lesson plans, her phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number, if you want the truth about your son, meet me. Tomorrow. After school. She stared at the screen. No name. No details. Just the faint chill of something she couldn't name. And for the first time in months, she wondered if Jake's worst day wasn't behind them after all. The next morning began with the kind of quiet that pretends to be mercy. Miss Harper drove with both hands on the wheel, eyes on the pale ribbon of road between apartment and school. Jake sat slouched beside her, hood up, fingers drumming a restless code against his thigh. They didn't talk about the text from the unknown number. They didn't talk about Principal Wexler's formal review. They didn't talk about the alley 3 years ago. At 7:58, they walked into the main office together and split at the doorway like two currents that used to run as one. Jake signed in and disappeared down the hall. Harper smoothed the crease from her skirt and knocked on Wexler's door. Inside, Wexler at the head of a conference table, the assistant principal with a legal pad, the school counselor Dr. Lynn with a folder, and Ethan Mullen's parents, Mr. Mullen in a blazer with an athletic logo, Mrs. Mullen with a controlled, polished smile that said this was not her first meeting like this. Thank you for coming, Miss Harper, Wexler said, standing, then gesturing for everyone to sit. Let's review where we are. Harper folded her hands. Where we are is that the camera angle was inconclusive, and my son says he was cornered. Mrs. Mullen's smile thinned. Our son says he was shoved with no provocation. That's not what the hallway witnesses told security, Dr. Lin added gently. They heard raised voices before any contact. Raised voices are not a shove, Harper said, calm as a metronome. Words are where fights begin. That matters. Mr. Mullen leaned in. What matters is pattern. Your boy has one. Wexler cleared his throat. We're not assigning guilt today. We're setting expectations. Jake will attend a conflict resolution session with Dr. Lin and remain on behavioral contract. We'll also adjust hallway supervision near the west stairs. And the suspension? Harper asked. Not at this time, Wexler said, eyes flicking to the Mullins. We'll revisit if there's another incident. There it was, the condition tucked inside the compromise, a fuse tucked inside a matchbox. If there's another incident. The meeting adjourned with practiced politeness. In the hallway, Ms. Doyle brushed past Harper and murmured, hang in there, in the tone people use when they've already let go. Mr. Patel adjusted his tie and didn't meet her eyes. The word optics threaded the air again, silk thin, steel strong. By third period, Harper was in her classroom, writing structure is mercy on the board. She talked students through transitions, how to move a reader from one idea to the next without breaking their neck. You don't slam doors, she said. You hold them open and let people through. At 11:42, the hallway radio crackled to life, one of those clipped security transmissions that tells you everything and nothing at once. Copy, East Courtyard, student altercation, requesting backup. The class went still. Harper's chest cinched. East Courtyard meant outside the cafeteria, a funnel of noise and elbows and showmanship. She delegated quickly, independent work, 10 minutes, I'll be right back, and slipped into the hall. Even before she reached the courtyard, she could feel the crowd's temperature. A ring of students had formed, phones already angled, the way storms call cameras like lightning calls metal. Security wove toward the center, but the knot held fast. Harper pushed through the outer edge just in time to see the shape of it, Ethan Mullen with his arm hooked around a freshman's backpack strap, holding it high like a trophy, two of his friends circling, the freshman, a small kid with braces and panic-bright eyes, reaching up, pleading. Jake stood 3 feet away, fists balled, shoulders tight, the old alley replaying behind his irises like a projector that had lost its switch. Put it down, Jake said, voice low. Ethan laughed without humor. Play hero somewhere else. Put it down, Jake repeated. Now. A dozen phones leaned in. The freshman's backpack swung, contents thumping, a textbook, a lunch, a pencil case. Ethan hoisted it higher, showboating, and the freshman stepped under to grab. Ethan shoved him back, open palm, quick. The kid stumbled. The crowd sound changed, pitch rising. Jake moved. It wasn't theatrical. It wasn't pretty. It was a line, a straight, fast line from trigger to action. He stepped in, swatted Ethan's arm down, wrenched the strap free, and shoved the backpack into the freshman's chest. Go, he snapped. The freshman bolted through a gap in the crowd. For half a breath, the courtyard held. Then Ethan lunged. They collided hard, shoulder to shoulder, knees scraping concrete. A table skidded, a tray clattered, someone swore. Security reached them at the same time Harper did. She caught a flash of Jake's face, not rage, exactly. Calculation. A boy refusing to be the kid on the curb again. Back off, a guard barked, and students stumbled backward in a domino of sneakers. Jake. Harper called, uselessly, because names don't stop physics. The guard pulled Ethan away. Another caught Jake around the biceps, guiding his arms down. Harper stepped closer, hands up. I've got him, she said to the guard, and to Jake, I'm here. He stopped straining. His breath sawed, his eyes were glassy, present and far away. The crowd circle loosened when it realized no one was bleeding. Phones lowered, but not all of them. Ethan was already narrating to his friends. He came at me, man. I was just, he grabbed, he went psycho, words snowballed into a version that hardened even as it moved. Harper looked at the freshman, 2 steps inside the breeze block shade, clutching his bag, shaking. Are you okay? She asked. He nodded too fast, eyes huge. Tell security what you saw, she said. His mouth opened, then closed. His gaze slid to Ethan's friends, then to Jake, then to the nearest phone. Fear did what fear does. He skittered away. The assistant principal arrived with a clipboard and the tight smile of someone already scripting the email. Everyone back to class, she called. Now. Harper kept her voice level. Jake intervened to stop a theft. The freshman ran. We'll take statements, the AP said. Please return to your room, Miss Harper. I'm his mother, Harper replied, not loud, not meek. I'll walk with him. The AP hesitated, then nodded at the guard. They released Jake into Harper's orbit and led Ethan the opposite direction. The crowd broke apart, murmurs scattering like startled birds. In the quiet that followed, Harper and Jake stood in the hallway's fluorescent hum. He leaned back against cinderblock, knuckles scraped, eyes flat. You can't just, she began, then stopped. The lecture was there on the tip of her tongue, use words, find adults, de-escalate, and it tasted like chalk. Are you hurt? No. You did the right thing in the wrong way, she said softly. He stared at the floor. He was going to humiliate that kid. You think anyone would have stepped in? I would have. You weren't there yet. He wasn't wrong. The truth pricked. She swallowed it. They walked to the main office in a silence that had weight. At the counter, the secretary handed the AP a form without being asked. Wexler arrived, suit jacket unbuttoned, face already arranged for diplomacy. We'll need both boys' statements, he said. And Jake will spend the rest of the day in the reflection room. Is that an in-school suspension? Harper asked. It's a pause, Wexler said, using yesterday's word again like it could keep today from becoming tomorrow. We'll review footage. There's footage this time? Harper asked. Several phones, the AP answered. And the East Cam might have a partial. Harper exhaled. Phones. Proof and performance, both. She walked Jake down the hall toward the reflection room, a repurposed space with soft chairs and hard posters about choices. At the door, he stopped. You think I'm broken, he said, not as accusation, as weather report. I think you're hurting, she replied. And I think hurting looks like fighting when your body remembers what your mouth won't say. He stared at the carpet, jaw flexing. What if they expel me? Then we fight smarter, she said. Together. She left him with Dr. Lin and stepped into the empty corridor. Her phone buzzed, another text from the unknown number. I was there. Courtyard. After school. Same place. You want the truth, come alone. For a moment, the world narrowed to the glow of the screen in her palm. The warning from yesterday had become a siren. Someone was inside the story. Someone had watched it bend and could name the hands. Harper looked back at the door to the reflection room, then down the hallway toward the front office where emails became policy. She tucked the phone into her pocket. She had a class to teach. A son to defend. And at 3:15, a meeting with a ghost who claimed to carry the truth. In the staff room, Ms. Doyle would say the word optics again. Mr. Patel would polish the silence. The crowd would edit the moment before uploading it. But none of them would be at the East Courtyard when the light went long and the campus emptied. Miss Harper would. Because this was the only way stories get rewritten, not by wishing, not by waiting, but by walking straight into the place where they're being told. By the time the last bell of the day rang, the incident in the East Courtyard had already morphed into a kind of folklore, retold, exaggerated, and filtered through dozens of phone screens. The version that spread fastest was the shortest, 15 seconds of shaky footage showing Jake stepping toward Ethan, grabbing his arm, and shoving the backpack into the freshman's chest. The video cut off before Ethan lunged. It cut off before the freshman escaped. It was enough for people to make up their minds. Miss Harper didn't see the clip until she was in the staff room, refilling her coffee. The air smelled faintly of burnt toast and printer toner. On the couch, Mr. Patel and Ms. Doyle were huddled over a phone. They looked up when she entered, but didn't hide the screen. "That's the video," Ms. Doyle said, tapping pause. Jake's face was frozen mid-motion, jaw tight, eyes hard. Harper set the coffee pot down a little too carefully. "Where did you get that?" "Group chat," Patel said, avoiding her eyes. "It's going around." "It's missing half the story," Harper said. "That may be," Doyle replied, "but perception is reality around here. And right now, the perception is," she trailed off, as if inviting Harper to finish the sentence. "Is what?" Harper asked, steady. "That your son's dangerous," Doyle said, not cruelly, but without flinching. The words landed like a gavel. A couple of teachers at the far table pretended to keep grading papers, but their pens had stopped moving. "You all know me," Harper said, scanning the room. "You know I've never let my personal life interfere with my students. Jake is a kid who keeps getting into fights," Patel cut in, softer than Doyle but no less pointed. "I'm not saying it's your fault, but," he glanced toward the closed door, as if worried someone outside might hear. "We all have to think about safety." Harper felt the shift, subtle, like the temperature dropping before rain. This wasn't about one video anymore. It was about trust. "Safety works both ways," she said. "What about the freshman he was helping?" "Helping?" Doyle arched a brow. "Is that what you call it? Because the clip sure doesn't look like that. And you know how parents are. One incident like this, and they start asking why someone with that kind of home situation is even allowed to work here." The phrase home situation slid into the air like oil on water. It carried the quiet sting of gossip. Harper straightened her shoulders. "If anyone here thinks my son's behavior defines my ability to teach, they can say it to my face." The silence that followed wasn't agreement. It was calculation. Who would risk being the one to say it out loud? Finally, Mr. Torres from the history department cleared his throat. "It's not about your teaching, Harper. It's about distractions. Optics." There it was again. Optics. A word that could make even the best record look like a liability. "I'll remind you," Harper said, voice cool, "that optics once meant standing in front of what's real and seeing it clearly. Not cropping it to fit your fears." No one responded. Patel took a sip from his mug, Doyle pretended to scroll through her phone. Harper turned to leave, but near the door, she overheard two younger teachers whispering. "Told you she'd get defensive." "Well, wouldn't you? With a kid like that?" She didn't break stride. She didn't turn around. But the words stayed with her, echoing in the hollow between her ribs. Back in her empty classroom, Harper sat at her desk and opened her laptop. Her inbox already had 3 parent emails with subject lines like concern about safety and yesterday's incident. She clicked one at random. The message was polite, but the subtext was sharp. "If your son can't follow the rules, how can we expect you to enforce them for ours?" She closed the laptop without replying. Through the window, she saw Jake crossing the courtyard toward the parking lot, backpack slung over one shoulder. His gait was loose, almost casual, but she recognized the tension in it. The same tension she'd seen after the alley. After the first fight. After the first time someone called him that kid. Harper knew this wasn't just about one video. It was about the story people wanted to believe, and how hard it would be to change it once it took root. In the distance, thunder rumbled, low and long. The storm wasn't here yet, but it was coming. The rain had started by the time Harper left the building. The sky hung low and heavy, turning the parking lot into a mirror of wet asphalt. She pulled her hood over her hair and crossed to the far side, where the street lamps hadn't yet flickered on. The message from the night before still glowed in her mind: if you want the truth about your son, meet me tomorrow. After school. No name. No time. Just a location, East Lot, behind the old gym. She saw him leaning against the chain-link fence, hood up, hands buried in the pockets of a windbreaker. Early 40s, maybe. Familiar in the way you recognize someone you've passed 100 times but never spoken to. You came, he said, voice low. I almost didn't, Harper replied. Who are you? Doesn't matter. What matters is this. He pulled a phone from his pocket, unlocked it, and held it out. On the screen, a video began to play, same courtyard, same moment, but this time it didn't stop after 15 seconds. It showed Ethan shoving the freshman first, knocking his books to the ground. It showed Jake stepping in, pulling Ethan back, saying something too quiet for the mic to catch. It showed Ethan swinging first, Jake blocking, and then forcing the backpack into the freshman's hands before telling him to leave. When the clip ended, Harper felt the tightness in her chest ease just enough to breathe. Where did you get this? She asked. I was there, he said. I teach part-time. No one noticed me filming. But the thing is, this? He tapped the phone. The administration doesn't want it. Her brow furrowed. What do you mean? I sent it to the principal this morning. An hour later, I get called into his office. He tells me the video isn't helpful, and that maybe I should delete it before it causes complications. Complications, Harper repeated, tasting the word like something sour. He nodded. They're not after your son, Harper. Not really. They're after you. This is their chance. Rumor is, Wexler's been looking for an excuse to push you out, budget cuts, politics, whatever. A teacher with a violent kid? Perfect headline. Harper's stomach churned. She'd felt the cold edge of judgment from colleagues, but hearing it framed as strategy was different. Why are you telling me this? She asked. Because it's wrong. And because you need to be careful. He glanced over his shoulder, as if the rain could carry sound. Don't confront them yet. If they know you have this, it'll disappear. Find someone outside the school to hold on to it. Someone you trust. She took the phone, slipping it into her bag. What's your name? He hesitated. Call me Mark. And, Harper, his gaze met hers, steady and serious. Watch your back. Before she could respond, he pushed away from the fence and walked off into the rain, disappearing around the corner of the gym. Harper stood there a moment longer, the wind pushing at her hood, the cold seeping into her sleeves. The video in her bag felt like both a shield and a target. Back at her car, she spotted Jake waiting in the passenger seat, earbuds in, scrolling his phone. He looked up as she opened the door. You're late, he said. I had to meet someone, she replied, starting the engine. About me? Her eyes flicked to him, then back to the road. About us. The wipers swept the windshield in slow arcs, the steady rhythm giving her just enough space to think. She had proof now, proof that could clear Jake. But Mark's warning clung to her like the damp air, they're not after your son. They're after you. And she knew that if the wrong person found out what she was holding, this storm could turn into something much worse. The notice came in a plain envelope, slid under her classroom door sometime during fourth period. Faculty review, attendance required. No explanation. No signature. Just a time, 3 p.m. in the conference room. By the time Harper arrived, the long oval table was already occupied. Principal Wexler sat at the head, flanked by Assistant Principal Doyle on his right and Mr. Patel on his left. The rest of the seats were filled with a mix of department heads and staff members who'd never had much to say to Harper unless it was about lesson plans. Jake wasn't there, but his shadow was. A printed still frame from the cropped video, his arm grabbing Ethan's, lay in the center of the table like evidence in a trial. "Miss Harper," Wexler said, not looking up from his notes. "Please, have a seat." She sat. The chair was cold, the air colder. "We've convened this meeting," Wexler began, "to address the incident involving your son and another student. Concerns have been raised not only about the altercation itself but also about the perception of safety within our school community." Perception. The word was becoming a noose. "I'm aware of the concerns," Harper said evenly. "But I think we all know this video doesn't tell the whole story." Doyle leaned forward, her voice sugar-coated but sharp. "With all due respect, the community can only work with the information it sees. And what it sees here is a pattern: your son involved in repeated conflicts, and you, as a faculty member, in a position where your personal life directly intersects with your professional responsibilities." Patel chimed in, "It puts the school in a difficult position. Parents have been writing in. They want assurances. Some are questioning whether continued employment is in the best interest of the institution." There it was. The real reason for the meeting, sliding out from behind the curtain of concern. "You're talking about firing me," Harper said. "No one's using that word," Wexler replied. "We're discussing options. Perhaps a leave of absence while your family addresses these matters." She felt the weight of the phone in her bag. Mark's video. The proof. One press of a button, and this entire room would have to eat their words. But Mark's warning echoed, "They're not after your son. They're after you. If the concern is safety," Harper said, "then you should be interested in the truth." She glanced around the table. "The whole truth?" Wexler's eyes narrowed. "And what exactly do you mean by that?" Harper met his gaze, steady. "I mean, I have evidence that contradicts the narrative you've been feeding this staff. Evidence that clears Jake of starting that fight." A murmur rippled through the room. Doyle's smile faltered. Patel shifted in his seat. "Miss Harper," Wexler said slowly, "if you have something like that, it should have been submitted to administration through the proper channels." "And deleted?" she asked, her voice hardening. "Like the last time someone tried to share it?" For the first time, Wexler's mask slipped. A flicker, brief, but there, of recognition. "This isn't the place for accusations," he said. "It's exactly the place," Harper countered. "Because while you're talking about perception, I'm talking about fact. And if you think I'm going to sit here while you dismantle my career and paint my son as a threat, you're wrong." The silence that followed was thick, unbroken except for the hum of the ceiling vent. Finally, Doyle spoke. "If you have this supposed evidence, then I suggest you bring it to the next meeting, where it can be properly reviewed." Properly buried, Harper thought. She stood, sliding her chair back with a low scrape. "I'll bring it," she said. "But not just to you." Wexler's jaw tightened. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I'll make sure every parent who wrote in, every teacher in this building, and every member of the school board sees what really happened." The room tensed like a drawn bowstring. Wexler's voice dropped low. "Careful, Harper. There are consequences for going outside the chain of command." She met his warning with a steady stare. "And there are consequences for covering up the truth." Without another word, she walked out. Her heart was pounding, but her steps were steady. In her bag, the phone felt heavier than ever, not just proof, but the fuse to a bomb she was about to light. Outside, the rain had stopped, but the air carried the electric charge of a storm that hadn't finished yet. Tomorrow, she knew, would decide everything. The gymnasium smelled faintly of polished wood and freshly printed programs. Folding chairs were lined in perfect rows, and the low murmur of voices filled the air. Tonight was the Spring Awards ceremony, an event meant to celebrate achievements, not air grievances. But for Harper, it was the perfect stage. She sat near the aisle, her bag resting at her feet, the phone inside feeling like a live wire. Up front, the stage was dressed with banners in the school's colors. Principal Wexler stood at the podium, smiling the practiced smile of someone who owned the room. "Tonight," he began, "we honor the dedication and excellence of our students. These young people have shown us the very best of what our community has to offer." Harper's gaze drifted across the audience until she found Jake, leaning against the back wall. His hands were stuffed into his pockets, his expression guarded, as if daring anyone to come too close. But when their eyes met, something softened in his face. Wexler called up the first group of honorees, applause rising and falling in neat waves. Then, as he reached for the next stack of certificates, Harper rose from her seat. "Excuse me," she said, her voice carrying further than she expected. Heads turned. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Wexler's smile stiffened. "Miss Harper, this isn't." "It is," she said. "Because before we celebrate our students, we need to make sure we're telling the truth about them." She climbed the short set of stairs to the stage, her step steady despite the thundering in her chest. Pulling the phone from her bag, she connected it to the projector cable lying on the podium. The screen behind her flickered to life. "What you've seen," she continued, "is a fragment of what happened in the courtyard last week. This is the full story." The video played. Gasps sounded almost immediately, Ethan shoving the freshman, Jake stepping in, the first swing coming from Ethan. No aggression, no unprovoked violence, just a boy trying to shield someone else. When the clip ended, silence hung heavy over the gym. Wexler's face was pale, his jaw clenched. Doyle avoided looking at anyone. Harper spoke again, her voice calm but edged with steel. "We owe it to our students, to our staff, and to our community to be honest. And honesty means not cutting corners with the truth, even when it's inconvenient." From the back, applause began, hesitant at first, then spreading until the whole room was clapping. Jake shifted against the wall, his eyes wide, caught between disbelief and something warmer. The ceremony stumbled forward after that, but the energy had shifted. Whispers replaced stares, nods replaced frowns. Harper stayed only until the end, then slipped out into the cool evening air. She found Jake waiting by the side entrance, hands still in his pockets. "You didn't have to do that," he said quietly. "Yes, I did," she replied. "Because you're my son. And because you deserved someone to tell the whole story." He looked down at his shoes, then back up at her. "I don't make it easy for you." Harper smiled, a tired but genuine curve of her lips. "Parenting's not supposed to be easy. But you're worth it. Every single day." For a moment, neither spoke. The night was still, save for the faint hum of the parking lot lights. Then Jake stepped forward, and to her surprise, he hugged her, tight, unguarded. "I know I screw up," he murmured. "But, thanks for not giving up on me." She hugged him back, feeling the tension that had wrapped around her for weeks finally begin to loosen. "Always," she whispered. "That's what we do. We keep going." They walked to the car together, the cool air brushing against their faces. Harper didn't know what Monday would bring, maybe another battle, maybe a brief reprieve. But as they drove away, the road stretching ahead under the streetlights, she felt something she hadn't in a long time. Hope.